Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Circle. We are joined by an unbelievably special guest this time. You may know him from clubs such as Altrincham Grammar School, Bowden Hockey Club, Loughborough Uni Hockey, Surbiton, and recently signed to Old Georgians, plus the Uprooters in the India Hockey League. 21 caps for GB with a 2021 debut and 26 caps for England with a 2022 debut. International achievements such as the Sultan of Johor winner in 2019, silver in the Oman Olympic qualifier for the Paris Games, bronze in the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham in 2022, and silver in the 23 European Championships. He was reserve keeper for Paris, and off the pitch as well. He's a frequent face at the MH1 camps to help the next generation of goalkeepers. He is the first guest that has an internationally recognised nickname of The Wall. And he has a degree in sports management, politics, and international development. Please welcome to the podcast, everybody, James Mazarelo.
Gosh, thank you very much. That's one intro that I wasn't expecting. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, it's no problem. Like I said, with a nickname of The Wall, you have to go all out, I would say.
Well, maybe so.
Yeah. So how are things going? How are you doing?
Yeah, no, all good, thank you. Nice to be back in doing some club stuff, like you say, at Old Georgians now. And then we're kind of building up to getting back in full time with the GB program in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, looking forward to getting back into it.
Brilliant. And I will put a disclaimer out here to say I am going to try my very best not to ask the exact same questions that Aisha did in the podcast that you did with her. I can't promise anything, but I'm trying my very best.
Yeah, she'll be coming after you otherwise.
Yeah. And the problem is she's a local. She knows where we are, and that's the worst bit. If she was somewhere further afield, I wouldn't be too panicked, but she knows where we live. So obviously, like you said, you're setting up for the season with Old Georgians. How's been that transition over from Surbiton?
Yeah, no, like it's obviously a different group, different challenge, different dynamic, but it's been great. So obviously there's some guys that were obviously involved in the Euros and are only just kind of starting to come back fully. But yeah, I've been around for a couple of weeks now, really enjoyed the sessions, and yeah, it's a great group to be part of. I'm really excited for the season to come, and yeah, looking forward to the first game that happens on the 20th, I think. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Okay, brilliant. What was the initial decision to change? Was it the right time? Was it end of the contract? So you're going, right, let's see what other bits and pieces, just to spread a bit more knowledge across your game?
Yeah, look, I think there's, like, Surbiton is a great club, and so is Old Georgians, and ultimately it became down to the decision of what was the best thing for me at the time for my game, my personal circumstances, and yeah, it was really hard because I love the coaching staff there, I love the players there, but ultimately it was the right decision for me to move on, and yeah, looking forward to starting kind of a new chapter in my career with Old Georgians, and hopefully some success will come with that.
Yeah, I would say so. What's the process of, especially as a keeper, and I'll talk about it further on, but what's the process of you changing clubs as a keeper? As in, do you have to relearn a structure? Do you know, right, so Old Georgians play in this sort of style, so I need to adjust how I play? Does that happen pretty much when you move club like that?
Yeah, I think to a degree, yes. I suppose what helps is having played against Old Georgians for the last 3 years, you kind of know,
yes,
you kind of expect, and you see the tactical presses and how they like to play the game, and therefore you kind of can see how the goalkeeper will fit into that. Yeah, I think obviously that there will be small adjustments, but equally you have your kind of style, the way you deliver goalkeeping the best way, and you don't want to go too far away from that. But yeah, there are nuances in terms of, I suppose the obvious one is man-to-man, you're potentially not going to be as involved, whereas a zone, you're going to be more active in trying to take away the aerials, especially the way the game's going. So I suppose that's more generic depending on what presses you're playing as, whatever team you're playing, rather than necessarily a team thing. But yeah, there'll be slight adjustments I have to make, and yeah, it'll be a nice new challenge.
Yeah, I think it'll be great. I'm looking forward to seeing how you get on throughout the season. It'll be good to keep an eye on. I will now get the difficult questions of the Euros that happened when this comes out a couple of months ago. You initially talked before, and again with Aisha, about that was your first tournament as being a number one keeper. Was it a bit of a double-edged sword in the sense that it was great that you're now number one keeper, but will people look at that, the fear of people looking at that as a slight against you, which it definitely wasn't, by the way. But it's, that mentality of it.
Yeah, look, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, really, in terms of, yeah, it was an amazing opportunity to get to be the number one at a major tournament that I hadn't had before. And so I loved getting the opportunity to do that. But yes, equally, it's not the outcome we wanted or I wanted for my first major tournament as the number one. And I think it's a really difficult space as a goalkeeper because yes, it can be very easy to look superficially at the outcome, going, well, okay, it's his first tournament. They didn't get out to the semi-finals. That's obviously, you could say, a black mark against my name. And I think for some people that will always be there. Whereas I think certainly throughout my career learned to look at, right, well, what can you actually control as a goalie? Because often results of games are actually out of your control. You can play really well and lose, and you can also play really badly and your team bail you out and you win. And unfortunately, it wasn't a perfect tournament for myself in the Euros, and I said this on the other podcast with Aisha, like I was happy with how I performed in my first major tournament, and that's the hard space that you have to learn to be in and reflect. Is what can I control? Did I commit to everything in terms of my processes? Yes. Did I perform well? I would say yes. It wasn't perfect, but yes. And so that's all I can do. And if that is held against me in the future, then so be it. Ultimately, I can't control that, and all I can do is focus on myself.
Yeah. As a defender myself, I would always, if a game goes the wrong way or a situation like that, I always go, well, look, the forwards didn't put the ball in the net. So
exactly.
That's their job.
Yeah.
You can save as many, but they didn't put they scored 2, but we didn't. Our forwards couldn't score 3, so that's how it went. Is sometimes I think the best way to look at it. You could have, just like you said, the best game you've ever had in your life, but if a forward didn't get that tap in at the back post, it's all their fault.
Well, I think, and that's probably one of the common things I find with like young goalkeepers who like love playing in goal, but then they almost want to stop because they feel that if they let in a goal and they lose, because if obviously you've let in a goal to lose, then they see that as their fault. And sometimes when you're young, it's hard to grasp that obviously you're within a team sport, but it's kind of an individual role within a team sport. And trying to have that acceptance that the result is out of your control, it's hard, and it only comes kind of with time. And that's one of the things I try and encourage when I'm coaching or being involved with younger goalkeepers, is to try and look past that. And it's very easy on a good day to do that. Equally, on a bad day, it's not so easy. And take the France game, for example, is after when you have time to rationally reflect on it, there wasn't really anything I could have done about any of the goals. But in the moment, you're going, oh, could I have done this? Could I have done that? And you're thinking, actually, could I have influenced the outcome? And only when you have that time to watch the video, try and take the emotions out of the situation, which is very difficult when the stakes are as high as they are, and considering of what we've said that we want to achieve as a team. But that's just unfortunately part of being a goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's the fun bit. Absolutely. Like you said, with younger keepers, going back to you getting started, obviously hockey wasn't your initial first choice of sport. You had multiple sports such as football and cricket beforehand. Do you think, and I've noticed it with everyone that I've talked to, having other sports as a background when you were younger helps then when you commit to hockey, or even if you committed to football or committed to cricket, it helps you in the long run.
Definitely, I think, and this is, I suppose from my degree as well, you see two different sides of different research that come out of it, of about early specialization and not. Certainly, I
Mhm.
feel that the breadth that I got to experience when I was younger, and kind of the general motor skills and the transfer of certain things across from different sports really helped. Like, I'm
Yeah.
almost certain that the footwork and all that kind of movement training I did when I was a football goalkeeper massively made my
Mhm.
movement, well, much easier to transition into movement in the kit, but then also keeping that
Yeah.
as a super strength that I could then develop going through my career. And I think all these kind of general hand-eye coordination from all these different sports, it can't do any harm. It got to a point where I was kind of 15, 16, and when you're going up the levels, sometimes like the technique for diving for a football goalie is very different to a hockey goalkeeper, and
Yes.
that's where I started to get into a tough space where I was trying to play football, but not really, just helping out kind of the school team, whatever. And I was trying to
Mhm.
really push. I was starting to get in and around the junior international setup, and I could feel that actually doing the football was almost then detracting away. And then at that point, it's probably then it's the right decision to then step
Yes.
away. Or it was in my case, it might not be for somebody else, and that's also a very important point. It's just because somebody else has
Mhm.
done it, that might not be the right thing for you, and
For
you
you.
have to make sure that um, you're making the decision that's right for you, and you're thinking about that rather than, oh, what is this person going to think? What's that person going to think? Ultimately, it's
Yeah.
your life, and you have to make those best decisions. So, for me, if I was encouraging young kids who want to be good at any sport, is try and take as much
Yeah.
experience from loads of different sports. Um, and then for whatever reason, it might be logistics that you can't train on both nights or whatever. Other factors, contextual factors can determine
Yes.
that. But try, and obviously, sorry to parents
Yeah.
that have to ferry them all around and do all of the traveling and all the
Yeah.
driving. But certainly from I think an overall performance side, but also enjoyment side. Um, I
Yeah.
think it's really important to try and play as many sports as possible.
Yeah. No. I I totally agree. It was something like, even though my family all played hockey, they still went, go and try, in school, tried all the sports there, and eventually still led down the path of playing hockey. But especially in a more specialized position like yourself of goalkeeper, all those other things can only help. You played football, so you've got that ability to move like a keeper and can develop it more. And then even with the cricket, that hand-eye coordination,
Definitely,
it's key for all those glove saves and stick saves and all of that. Like, it makes total sense.
definitely. I think, yeah, I think that's definitely something that's really helped. And you can also see sometimes when you're coaching young goalies, and you can almost relate them to the movement in another sport. So, for
Yes.
example, if they're trying to make a save. So if they're lunging left and you're thinking about, right, I need to get my head and hand going over with the movement, you could then talk about, right, do you play cricket? If you're going to play a cricket shot, where does your head go when you're trying to hit the ball? And those different things is actually, or if you're going to go and
Yes.
kick a ball in football, where do you want to be? What's your body position? And then actually then talk about the nuance of, actually in hockey goalkeeping, you don't want your head back like you might in football because we need to keep it down. And so you do have to be careful
Yes.
about the transfer of skills, but there's definitely common themes across skills in different sports that you can take, and hopefully it becomes more relatable in their head, so it aids their learning. But equally, it can also be
Yeah.
useful to remind them actually there's some differences in, for example, a hockey goalkeeper trying to kick clear compared to
Yeah.
football.
No. Yeah. I totally agree. And the the talent pathway then, so you've committed to hockey as a younger player, and what was then that pathway like for you as a keeper going through that England GB underage groups?
Yeah, so my first experiences of the player pathway were when I was under 15. We had something that was called HIPAC. So I know the player pathway's changed now. But that was effectively North, so it was an under 15 North squad, and then they also were joined by the South, East, West. We all came together, did a training camp, and that was the first time I kind of really understood the player pathway. That there was an opportunity to play junior international hockey. Because prior to that, it had all been very club focused. There was a little bit of county stuff that was just, which was beneficial, but it was more just, right, great, there's more hockey, can get
Yeah.
excited about that, and it wasn't really leading anywhere. And so then after that, under 15 year, went to the under 16s, got into that squad, and for me, that was the first time where everyone from across the country had been brought together, and it was great to kind of test myself against the best from the whole country.
Hmm.
So like really enjoyed that. And then the year after got into the under 18s a year early. So it was still kind of in my lower sixth year. And
Okay.
we had a Europeans at the end of that. So that was a really good experience to kind of get to play in those teams. But I think it's a really interesting one as a goalkeeper because there's obviously only 2 or 3 slots in
Yeah.
those teams. And so everybody has a different journey. Everybody develops at different rates. And I think that's the really important part is if you don't get picked, it's not the end of the world. Like you see so
Hmm.
many people in the senior squads now. Some have come through the pathway, but equally quite a lot haven't and have very different experiences that are really beneficial to them and their journey and why they've developed at those times. So there's no one right path that you must follow. And that's
Hmm.
one thing that I think is really important, especially for young keepers, that it's quite likely that you will miss out at some point and don't get picked. But actually, if you can then take the learnings and try and improve as much as possible through that, then that's all you can do. I think what's
Yeah.
really nice now is they've tried to help because when I did these tournaments and junior pathway, it was very much we had a Futures Cup. We played games against the other regions, and then we were basically told you have to do really well in the warm up because as a goalie, if your team's really good, you're not going to get
You're
much
not gonna
action
get
in the
seen.
game. Yeah, so look, it's really important that it's now that they've made that change. So when you go to these kind of assessment tournaments, they also do a goalkeeper session, which is great because then it
Yeah.
allows them to at least make a more informed decision about it, but also give feedback. And that's really important for goalkeepers that have made it, but also haven't made it, haven't got picked because they can learn, understand what do they need to get better, so that each time there's that selection as you go through. Because if your dream is to play
Yeah.
international hockey at that age, you're going to have to go through selection moments the whole time. Um, and if you can tell yourself, look, I've looked at this feedback, I've got better because of it, you're then putting yourself in a better position each time down the line. Hopefully that will come. It might not,
Yeah.
but you've done everything you can. You've got no regrets, and that's the best way to be ultimately.
Yeah. No. It's interesting from a keeper's point of view because yeah, like you said, there's only a couple of positions. It's a specialized position. There's then very limited things that can be done if it's not done right. But it's great to hear that they're now putting that sort of keeper session in so that they can actually have a look at you properly. Did you find there was much of a difference between the age groups? I know speaking to the few of the people here, they found it was more a physicality thing. Each age group got more than anything else because skills will naturally go with you. It's more the physicality side. Did you find anything then more as a keeper then?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you raised there. Because so when I was in that under 18 summer, I also get the opportunity to play it against Germany in an under 21 test series, and for the out with a couple of outfielders from that under 18 squad,
Yeah.
and they really, I think it's fair to say, struggle with the physicality because the speed of movement, what they're expected to do in terms of the length of stints that they're on the pitch, how
Mm-hmm.
quickly they got to run, and consistently across that whole period they're on the pitch, 5-6 minutes. Whereas from a goalkeeper side, it's slightly different, I think, because the speed of the game changes. And obviously, you've got to be quicker, so you've got to position yourself better, read the game better.
Mm-hmm.
But the speed that somebody's hitting at you, especially if you played kind of men's senior hockey, people, even in your fourth team down the
Yeah.
local club, can hit the ball hard.
Yeah.
It's probably a question of consistency. So probably if you gave a forward in the under 21s 10 shots, they're potentially going to get or make a really good save seven or eight times.
Okay.
Under 18s, these are arbitrary numbers, but in terms of the principle of right, then the under 18s is probably 5 or 6. So I think probably
Okay. Yeah.
the top level and their ability to execute or hit the ball harder is an obvious example. They can, in all moments, deliver something really special, but it's probably
Mhm.
that consistency of it, which is then kind of probably what we're all going after in senior
Yeah.
international hockey. Is everyone's got the ability to execute something really well. It's can you deliver that consistently and under
Hmm.
pressure in the really important moments? And I think fine margins are separating all of these major tournaments now, and that's probably kind of the magic bullet as such that every team is looking for is how do we basically execute
Yeah.
to a really high level in those really important crucial moments.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting because it's almost the few times speaking to the younger keepers and things like that at the clubs that I've coached at, it's interesting to hear that almost it's that, oh, but they're going to hit the ball harder, or that's almost the fear of the next step. But actually, hearing that, it's more just the consistency. Yes, they might hit the ball harder, but everyone is going to hit the ball harder. It's just a case of they might put it in the bottom corner, like you said, 3 out of 5 times, opposed to only once out of 5 times.
yeah.
So that's a good way for younger keepers to look at it, definitely.
And I think probably the biggest jump I felt I had, and it probably wasn't at the time, was that move from junior hockey, where you're kind of playing with people of your age, to then playing men's hockey,
Yeah.
because it's a very different style of game. So
Hmm.
certainly when you go from kind of I probably went from under 14, under 15 to then kind of a low, I don't know, fifth, sixth team at Bowden.
Hmm.
In fact, it was the fifth team. And it's the game is slower in terms of because physically you tend to have older players playing, so they
Yeah.
can't run as fast, but their ability to hit the ball is high. So it's a very different kind of
Yes.
style game, and so that probably takes some adjustment. Is when you're just playing kind of junior hockey or age group hockey, everything happens. So they're carrying the ball faster, potentially passing the ball, running. The game is
Mhm.
potentially progressing faster, but the technical skills of being able to hit and slap the ball are not as good as the men they're doing it in the fifth team. And
Yeah.
that was probably the biggest jump. Um,
Okay.
which
And then did you then find a jump then when going into Loughborough? Not even just from the skill level. When you went into Loughborough, you had that balance of academic work, but then hockey work as well. Obviously Loughborough's renowned for it. How did you find it all then?
yeah, look, I think certainly when you're applying to universities, that can be quite a stressful time as um, a hockey player, but also anybody going there. So
Mhm.
I kind of had 5 universities that I'd applied to, and you're trying to work out what's the best place for you. So obviously, for me, I had 2 priorities: my degree and then also the hockey side, and both were
Mhm.
really important to me. So you wanted to try and find the best outcome for both of those. And yes, there might have had to be a compromise. For me, luckily, there didn't have to be because I decided that I wanted to do a sport and exercise science undergraduate degree. Loughborough was the best place in the world for it at the time, so I was like, right, well, that's a big tick from a academic side.
Mhm.
Hockey side, I was lucky that they didn't have. In terms, I kind of knew that if I went to Loughborough, most likely I'd end up be kind of playing for the first team, which was a great position
Mhm.
to be. It was kind of the same league level I'd been playing at Bowden, so that was perfect in that I wasn't going down a league. But also from a general support side, like the access to support staff, whether that be a strength and conditioning coach, nutritionist, psychologist, it's effectively run, and quite a lot of universities now run like that. They're
Mhm.
almost like a full time program
Yeah.
at university where you can just do that alongside your degree. Um, and it was a massive thing for me. So yes, I joined kind of the elite development program, which is similar kind of works with the under 21 program and is that feeder into the senior program that I'm in now while I was in my final year at school. So I got some strength and conditioning support, but
Yeah.
it's very camp based, that program. So the S&C coach was great in trying to give me a program, support me when I was at camp, but I was in Manchester, he was down at Bisham Abbey, so
Yeah.
you can't support somebody in that way. So it was very much, he had to give me exercises that would give me a base and develop me from a physical point of view, but it had to be safe because he couldn't watch me and see if my technique was
Yeah.
wrong. And then the last thing you want to do is get a young person injured by trying to push them too hard in the gym without the support
Without
and the
someone there.
technique. Exactly. And so I think, to be fair, that was really useful for me at the time because it then gave me that base. So then when I went to Loughborough, I kind of had this base that they could build on. And yes, I had then a coach that could basically be there at every session I did and was then trying to really push me in those areas. And I think it was great that I could then sit down with them and go, I really want this to transfer onto the pitch. Like,
Okay.
I will do everything I can to do that and make myself and commit to the gym so that I see the real benefits on the pitch. So how do I increase my lateral explosivity, my general speed and power around the goal, my ability to get up quickly, my core strength so I can hold my body shape in
Mm-hmm.
certain positions, whether it be a smother in a dive so I can get up quicker, or make a second phase save because I can hold my body in a slightly strange position. So I think that was massive from a physical side of developing. That obviously tied into the nutritionist support of, right, you're moving away from home and all of those things, is trying to
Mm-hmm.
manage that. But equally, you need to make sure you're eating well enough because you're training a lot so you can recover, you can
Yeah.
build all that muscle strength or whatever the adaptations. Like, you look at me now, you wouldn't think I've put on lots of muscle, but I went to uni at 73 kilos, and now I'm 80 kilos and I still look like a beanpole. So like there's definite benefits to that. And the nutritional support I had there was great. Obviously tapping into the psychological side was great, but also we also had a performance lifestyle who was advisor, who was massively beneficial for me in
Mm-hmm.
trying to help me manage my academic commitments and also my hockey commitments. So throughout my time at Loughborough, whether it would be the under 21 trips to Sultan of Johor Cup, where you're going to Malaysia for a tournament, but that means you then miss 2 or 3 weeks of university. And
Of
so trying
course.
to manage those exams. When I got into the full-time program in my final year at school, final year at university, sorry, um, I then started full-time at Bisham Abbey, but was still finishing my final year of my undergraduate degree full-time. So trying to sit exams in other countries, manage all
Yes.
of that, they were really important. And both sides, both the performance lifestyle advisor from Loughborough, but also GB Hockey, were great in terms of managing that, so I could effectively do both
Mm-hmm.
full time. Which, looking back on it, was crazy, and it was a hard year, but definitely wouldn't change it because I then got to finish my university degree in the right number of years, but
Yeah.
also get the opportunity to join a full time senior program, which was obviously ultimately one of my main aims of going to Loughborough, that I could push my academics to as high
Mm-hmm.
as I wanted them to, and then also push my hockey. And I think now from Loughborough, I then did a master's after I finished my undergraduate degree in sport management, politics, international development. So, which has then helped me from a side of now, after finishing that, I've got a part-time job at a small public leisure consultancy firm called SLC, who we do work with councils and other kind of stakeholders to try and help kind of public leisure be run as effectively as possible for the local
Cool.
community. So that's really important. But also from a hockey side, it was massive that it also helped me in that sense. So we've talked about the access to strength and conditioning, other support staff, but ultimately the hockey coaching was also fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
I was blessed when I was younger to work with amazing goalkeeper coaches at clubs. So I had Roger Newcomb, who was amazing at giving me a really good technical base. Then I had Rob Turner as well, who has done some stuff with the England age groups, but was locally based to me. So I just was playing and still is playing at a really
Yeah.
high level. So it was great to have those conversations with him of going, right, yes, this is technically perfect. This is what the textbook says. But in these situations, I struggle. How could we tweak it? So having those conversations was really important. And then at Loughborough, getting the opportunity to work with Alan McGregor, obviously World Goalkeeper of the Year,
Mm-hmm.
been to Beijing as the GB goalie. So understanding a lot from him, learning both from a hockey side, but also I think he was massively influential in developing me in my personality, my character off the pitch, coming out of my
Yeah.
shell. Because I was and still am to an extent a shy person. So trying to bring that out of me was massive, and has definitely shaped who I am now.
Yeah.
It's a really important part that goalkeeping is as much. There's obviously really good physical, technical elements that you have to be really good at, but there's also a psychological element from your team. Do they have real confidence in you that you're going to keep them in games? And also from
Yes.
an opposition point of view, they know it's going to be really tough to score against you. And it's something that he brought to me that I never really thought about before, and he kind of called it presence in the goal in
Hmm.
terms of the impact you have on your own team, but also the others. And it's something I'd never really thought of. And it's almost every time I step onto the pitch, I have to find that other personality that helps develop that, because off the pitch, you almost have to manage those different
Yeah.
things that I don't necessarily want to be behaving in the same way and carrying myself in the same way off the pitch as I am on the pitch, because when you cross that white line, you want to do absolutely everything you can to help your team win. It doesn't mean you're crossing a line from
Hmm.
an ethical thing, but the presence you have in the goal, how you're communicating, how you're carrying yourself, the confidence you exude is really important from a goalkeeping side. I think the confidence that you have to look like you're really confident in your ability, and some might determine that as arrogance. Whereas off the pitch, I would
Yes.
never want to be described in that way. I want to be kind of seen as that humble, the hard worker that goes about his business in that way. And I think that's one thing I really struggled with going through university, is like having
Hmm.
that side, but also recognizing that that is so important, that you have to have that real confidence on the pitch, because the psychological impact of that is huge. So trying to play that now is almost, I see there's an alter ego that comes out. It's certainly, especially in high pressure situations, whether it be shootouts, whether it be highly pressured moments in international games, that's the different side of James
Yes.
Mazarelo than the off pitch person that is then working as a part time consultant to help councils run their public leisure service better. They're very different people,
Hmm.
but that's fine. Um, so yeah,
Yeah. No, I definitely think, you know, I was expecting this call to be with a focused, hard-working, aggressive goalkeeper, and then you've come on and been the nicest person ever. So it's there. It's like when people always go, "Oh, we're a way to play this team," and "Oh, such and such is horrible on the pitch," but as soon as they come off, they're the nicest person ever. You know, initially I would have always gone, "Oh, that's a bit of a weird thing," but the
yeah,
further you go on, the more you talk to people, actually it's a really good way of being, of you can have that, right, this is how I'm going to be on the pitch, but I don't want to be seen as that off the pitch, and to friends, family, co-workers, all of that sort of thing.
yeah. And I think like it's so important, because you want to have that drive to get better. You want to be constantly finding ways to improve and working really hard on the pitch. And then obviously in those match situations, you want to be winning. And so obviously how you do that, from obviously making saves, but kind of the presence you have in the goal, that's also really important. But equally, there's also wider life, that you want to be known as a person that is nice to be around, it can work effectively in a team rather than just on their own. I think that's also an interesting space from a goalie, given it's an individual role within a team as
Mm-hmm.
well. So trying to integrate really well within a wider squad and a team is also a really important part of the role as well. So yeah, there's probably, it's a really important thing, the way I see it, to have that
Mm-hmm.
drive and that ability to push yourself as hard as possible to get better,
Yeah.
um, and then give no quarter when you're on the pitch, and that you're going to give absolutely everything to get over that line within an ethical boundary,
Yeah.
and but then be a really nice person to be around off the pitch.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that attitude definitely helps. It helps with the confidence of you and also of your team, knowing that, right, yeah, nice person off the pitch, but once he steps on, he's going to give his all or their all to make sure that we get through this match with as little damage as possible. And I think it's a great way to be. And you know, going from that, and also kit is quite a important thing to make sure there's as little damage as possible to yourself. Um, but I think before we say about anything that you're using at the minute, I have to ask, what was the first kit that you remember putting on? Because I'm pretty sure it's the same situation up and down the country, of what's been worn and the condition of what's been worn as well.
Definitely. I mean, to be fair, I think probably what you're getting at is most clubs have a goalkeeper kit shed that you're kind of going. You get to training and you go, right, I'm just going to try and make a kit here out of whatever's
Yeah.
there. So probably the first kit, I couldn't really remember the details. There'll be like random kickers, probably
Yeah.
orange kickers. Then it'll be black leg guards, just red gloves. But actually, the one thing I do remember is the blue Slazenger helmet. That's just
Yes.
I remember wearing that. And so that's definitely my first helmet, which
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not wearing now, but it definitely did a good job when I was first starting out.
Yeah.
I think the first kit I do really remember was I had a set of black and red kickers and leg guards, and given Bowden was
Yes.
the colours of Bowden were black and red, especially when I was young, I was like, that's really cool. So
Of
I
course.
definitely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I know. Fair enough. I think whatever deal that Schlesinger did with every hockey club and school in the UK and Ireland needs to be studied in some form of business degree, because every
yeah.
keeper that I've ever spoken to has worn one of those helmets once in their life, for a
Oh,
season, for 2 seasons. Yeah,
they must have made a
that
lot
needs
of
to be.
money.
Oh, so much so they don't do it anymore. So that's
Yeah.
exactly the way to do it. Do one helmet, send it to everybody, retire gracefully. It's the way to do it. Um, but obviously you're playing with much nicer, much more protective kit at the minute. You're obviously playing with oboe stuff, which is high quality gear. You're currently using the plus kickers, but the standard leg guards. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you find the plus kickers first off? Because
Yeah.
obviously the more square shape, and then how do you find the standard leg guards in comparison to the plus leg guards?
Yeah. So the kickers were obviously a massive revelation when they first came out. So they're obviously, like you say, more square shape, more coverage of the toe, which is quite nice. So
Yeah.
especially when you're going for a big last, like big lunge save right at the end of the range of motion. Sometimes with the old kicker, that kind of the foam would come up off the toe, and then
Yes.
you'd be getting hit directly on the toe. So that's obviously a great win. And kind of the way they've done it is try to make the bottom bit flatter, and then it kind of bends away. So it should help
Hmm.
kicking it flatter. So again, really good innovation from them, which is why it's kind of widely been adopted across the whole game.
Yeah.
Um, I think the leg guards are a really interesting one. So obviously the plus leg guards are kind of more boxy, is how I describe it. So
Yes.
much less curvy. So a little bit wider, and very straight. Whereas the kind of the older style ones that I have are curved. And
Hmm.
so for me anyway, so having tried both, and there are definitely benefits to the new plus leg guards in terms of when you're lunging. Obviously you've got more of a surface area going into that space, more likely to make the
Hmm.
saves. For me, ground work and being able to move and scramble across the ground is a massive part of my game. And in terms of doing that with the new leg guards, it does involve a slight technical change of when you're on the floor, how the pads bend basically and work. Whereas
Yes.
the older style bend more. Whereas
Hmm.
because the new ones are much boxier to try and cover you more coverage when you're lunging, they obviously don't bend as much. So it's harder on the ground. And so I felt that would have been that's a really big change for me to go away from that.
Hmm.
And that's why at the moment anyway, I'm sticking with the older style leg guards. That's not to say that in the future I won't change.
Yeah.
But I think for the way I play my game, I've got so much confidence having used basically the oboe leg guard since I was 15. These kind of style
Hmm.
leg guards, I know exactly how they're going to behave in what movement. I can kind of feel when I'm coming to the end of a slide and not. how can I use that ability to kind of rotate on them? I know where they are.
Yeah.
And so it gives me that advantage when I'm in that space that I want to kind of basically retain at this
Yeah.
point in time. And I'm not willing to, the trade offs and the benefits come at a
Yes.
cost. And that's where I'm at in terms of the way I see my game.
Yeah. I just thought it was because you like the two tone colors.
Well, there is that benefit too. There is that benefit too.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, yeah. No, I thought that might have been a factor as well. But then obviously then you're using the plus gloves then as well, the left and the right. Obviously the right's been out for a good while now.
yeah,
But then bringing out the left in the past couple of seasons.
yeah.
How have you found using that? Obviously bigger surface area, a wee bit more sort of reach with it as well, I find.
Yeah. Look, I think it's great, and I suppose this is what's really exciting about Oba. Really is obviously, like you said there, in terms of the names, the plus. Like they're constantly looking to develop their kit, and
Mhm.
it's really nice to kind of be involved from a player side as well. As they're really good at trying to get player feedback to help develop and where the weaknesses and inverted commas in the kit to try and make it better.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, they want to develop their kit to meet the demands of the game as the game develops as well. So look, I think the left hand's was a great project in terms of they've obviously made it a little bit thicker to try and increase the rebound, but also
Yeah.
little things of how they've designed kind of the flat end of the glove is that it's slightly tapered so that when you push up to get off the floor, you can push downwards on with the edge rather than like having to go palm the floor.
Okay.
And it's all of those things that they have really thought of. It sits well on the hand, kind of, and the way they've done the strap, you can kind of put the strap directly onto your wrist so you can still have it over the top of the foam as well. So I think it's very flexible to kind of however anybody wants to use it. So
Yeah.
that's great. And that's the same with the right hand, really. You can have that big kind of like wrist lock-in kind of mechanism, or you can just have the strap, or you can don't have to use the strap at all.
Yes.
So I think how they're trying to make the kit flexible is a real positive, and also recognizing that not everyone is going to goalkeep in the same way, so the kit can
Yeah.
flex to allow them to do that, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah. And then you're using the new ABS style, which was the original shape of the helmet, but that new carbon helmet in that
Yeah,
style with the built-in throat guard and things. How are you finding that? You seem to be one of the first internationals to seem to get their hands on it. How have you found it?
yeah. Look, I'm absolutely loving it. I think the new shape obviously is very kind of I don't know what the word is, very like almost aerodynamic looking, like
Yes.
almost like a speed cyclist helmet. Um, but in terms of the new grill shape, there's much more vision, so you're kind of
Hmm.
peripheral vision, um, and so basically the ABS is the same similar shape to
Hmm.
the new carbon helmet they brought out. And I think I ended up actually before the Olympics, before we went off, we had to send our kit off a couple of days in advance. We were doing a session. I had an old ABS, so I put that on and was going, "Gosh, the vision is so much better." But obviously, at that point, the protection
Wasn't
in the
there?
ABS isn't as good as the carbon or the FG. Um, and so then when they brought out this new carbon helmet with this new shape, I was like, "This is brilliant. This is great."
Yeah.
Um, and so just yeah, I think because I don't particularly like to change kit very often, so the fact that I then adopted this so quickly, kind of during an international season, I think
Yeah.
that kind of speaks volumes of how easy, how well they've developed the product. So
Mhm.
yeah, no, massive thank you to Oba.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think it's just come out sort of for general public use, and you can see a lot more people going, actually, I like the shape of the ABS, but exactly like you said, maybe the protection level wasn't there for the level that they were playing at, and now it is with the carbon of it, and it's really exciting to see um how you've obviously got goalkeepers still use a hockey stick. You use the oboe straight as.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that over the likes of the Fat Boy one, which has the more traditional sort of kinked shape in it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think for me, I felt that especially when I'm trying to make kind of a stick save in the air,
Hmm.
everything I see is basically an extension of my arm. Whereas obviously, kind of with the traditional kind of curved
Yes.
shape of a goalie stick, if you then of imagining that your stick is completely straight, then when it's obviously bending, it's then right at the end of the range of motion. You're going, actually, it's not where you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
Um, so that's probably the main reason. I also think the balance point, without getting too nerdy, obviously, if you've got that curve, there's more weight at the bottom of the stick, which then changes how it feels in your hand. So
Hmm.
I effectively try and have a stick that almost feels weightless. So I kind of grip it there with only
Okay.
with very little weight in the head. Whereas obviously that old shape changes the balance point, which then means you have to change the composition to get the same feel. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's an interesting one with kind of the stick I use at the moment. So you have the Robo stick and then also the Cloud stick. So I actually use Cloud sticks because they're
Okay.
softer.
Yeah.
So the Robo is a higher carbon, and obviously the Cloud is lower carbon, and I just prefer a softer feel. Whereas a lot of there's other international guys that prefer the higher carbon because that's the feel. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting space to be in. I think that's what's great about kind of the Obo range is you've got that again from a stick side as well. That ability, if you want a
Multiple
softer feel, then
options.
you can have a Cloud. If you want that harder feel, or however you want with the higher carbon, um, then you go the Robo range.
Yeah. Do you have? Are you keeping it like a fatter grip or as skinny as possible to make it as light as possible? What's your sort of stick setup then?
So I am multiple grips over the top. So
Okay.
I kind of tailor it so I won't put three grips on all the way around, if that makes sense. So I have only
Okay.
one at the top, then two in the middle, and then three towards the bottom where I'm actually going to hold it. So it's
Okay.
kind of like because it's when you want to lengthen your stick, I didn't want it to go from really fat to really thin. So I kind of
Okay.
then, because otherwise it becomes really hard to adjust and you end up throwing your stick at your glove, basically. So you don't
Fair
want
enough.
that happening in an international game. So I really like that feel. And it's something actually, so I think Davey Hart was doing a session, obviously like big guy, massive hands. And he was like, if I don't put loads of grips on, I feel like my hands go around the stick twice. And so
Yes.
then that's kind of the best way to describe it is it feels much, for me anyway, more comfortable in my hand. Whereas if I don't have that thick, fat grip, I'm just like holding my hat, like holding my other side of my fingers rather than the
Yeah.
stick.
Then the stick.
Um, so yeah, so it does look slightly strange. Is that you pick up my stick and the top is like normal, which is one grip, and then as you go further down, it's just then this massive grip. So yeah,
There's, I think I asked the question to outfield players as well because again, everyone has their own style of right. I like thick grips, I like really thin, I like chamois grips on it, and all this sort of thing. And I still
yeah,
do think it's interesting. Keepers do have you're actually holding it in a much more difficult position almost than an outfield player. So
yeah,
having those extra grips or a balance that suits you is actually more important than an outfield player.
yeah.
I feel anyway.
Definitely. Oh well, I suppose I can't say that necessarily
Yeah,
because
that's
I'm
true.
not an outfielder. So, but I think the balance point, the bit about the balance point, is really key. So you can obviously put more weight in the bottom of the handle because
Hmm.
you're not really feeling that weight when you're playing because obviously so if you want to balance the point out, so sometimes if I've got a slightly head heavier stick, then I might go, well, I'm going to go two grips all the way along because
Hmm.
then it just brings that balance point lower to where I want to hold it on the stick. So for me, I think there is the feel of how it feels in your hand, the weightlessness, and how comfortable it feels for me is really important. I imagine probably for outfielders, I'm just not skilled enough when I occasionally coach to go, actually, where's the balance point on this? How does it need
Yeah,
to feel? So yeah, probably not a
yeah,
fair
no,
comment to say it's much more important. It's just different.
yeah, that's fair enough. I, it's you can answer this as honestly or not as you want. Um, it's is there any piece of goalkeeping kit that you don't find? It's just not a criticism on Obo or any goalkeeping kit that, just in your experience, it might only suit you, but just a bit of kit that might protect something that is maybe not as protected as much, or actually there's too much protection in this area and you can thin it down? Is there anything like that that you find that it just needs a bit of tweaking? Each kit that you've ever got, you've gone, right, I actually just restitch this because I keep wearing it away, or is it very individual?
I think it's probably very individual. So like
Yeah,
I suppose like Obo do knee pads, for example, to help give more protection around that area if you want it. Whereas like for me, I wouldn't want that because then I feel that affects your ability to move.
of course.
Um, and so that's the trade off. But then equally, I wear the biggest arm guards that there are, and you have others that are more designed for mobility and less protection. So it's all very much a trade off. I think there'll be little tweaks that everybody has with their kit. So, for example,
Yeah.
I will edit my left hand glove slightly in terms of like the inner has kind of like a thumb divider and then the
Mhm.
rest of it. And so I edit it so it fits basically the way my hand sits. I can like just basically almost file away a little bit of the thumb divider so it fits where I want it to fit. Whereas obviously that's not
Yes.
going to be the same for everyone. So I think you almost have to find how do you want your kit to feel,
Yeah.
and then obviously this is kind of they have molds at Obo. They can't mass produce like
Yes.
those. So then I know exactly how I want it to feel, which is kind of great. So then I can just edit it how I want it to. It takes
Yeah.
like less than 5 minutes, and then you're going. So I think it's very individualized, and I suppose I'm lucky enough that I get the opportunity to kind of try those things. So when a glove's coming to the end of its life that I can't use it anymore, I'm thinking right. Sometimes mucking around with it, going actually if I file this bit off, how does that feel? And then I can feed it back to Oban if they want to make that change permanent. They can, but if it's just me, that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
um,
I think that then sort of fits in nicely with, which was the next question I was going to ask, is would, and it links back to that leg guard situation that you're in of using the
yeah,
standard ones over the plus. Do you think it's important for junior keepers in general, to pick a kit that suits their style of play, opposed to, oh, well, everyone has the plus leg guards, so those must be the ones I have to have?
definitely. I think that you've hit the nail on the head because there's no point kind of being a sheep and following if actually you know that your style of play is more suited to a different style of kit or different kit or even just like a different right hand
Yes.
to those things. So I think that's especially from a young goalkeeper side, definitely because if you're more comfortable in your kit in a kit that suits your style better, you're going to probably play better, which means you're going to enjoy it more. And then you're more likely to stick with it, and that's ultimately what
Yeah.
we want. So, and especially like kit is expensive as well. Like let's not beat
Yes.
around the bush. So you want
Yeah.
to be in something that you feel really comfortable in, rather than you've gone, oh, that looks cool, or this is what loads of people are wearing. It must be the best. Whereas actually, it might not be the best for you. So there's no point wasting lots of money on something that isn't going to really help you play well, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely find something that suits you and allows you to play to your potential.
Yeah. And I think it's, we try and have those conversations going. Actually, when you've told us that you love sliding about the place, then actually maybe those aren't going to suit you as
Yeah,
well. And I think once people realize that, it becomes a lot easier then go, yes, well, now if I do spend the money on those leg guards, I know it's going to suit me, opposed to
yeah,
I get three training sessions in and go, I've made a mistake.
yeah,
And there's
yeah,
nothing worse than that. Even as an outfield player, you've gone to two train sessions. I've hit the ball and gone, oh, I've made a mistake on the stick. Obviously, a
yeah,
stick's a whole lot less expensive than
yeah.
the goalkeeping kit. But I think it's interesting for people to actually hear that firsthand. But again, going away from the kit chat, we've lost all outfield players in that past 20 minutes. And
yeah, yeah. Sorry, outfielders. They've definitely
yes,
not listened.
well,
They've turned off
look,
at this point.
yeah, but they've got plenty of other people to listen to, so it's fine. Going away from that, obviously you were a keeper out in the Hockey India League for the revamp of it. How did you find that? It was just an amazing thing to see, and everyone that said so far seems to have really enjoyed the experience of it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing experience of getting to play in a country that's so passionate about hockey. Loved it. I mean, our franchise, the UP Rudras, looked after us so well, and just really nice to kind of build a bit of a connection with people in that country. So as well
Mhm.
for me, my dad is Indian, so having a bit of
Yeah.
that heritage, being in touch with that, it was nice to get to play for almost an Indian team.
Yes.
Whereas in terms of when you go internationally, it's a very different environment because obviously you're kind of the enemy to the Indian crowd that they obviously want India to win. Whereas
Yeah.
when you're playing for that franchise, that area, you kind of build connections with those people that you obviously don't have, and then especially like with the younger Indian guys, like I felt that it was easier potentially for me to make a connection with those because we all were coached in English because obviously the coaches came from abroad. So for them, they
Yeah.
weren't that confident speaking English. Like they actually had really good English, but for them, they're young. They don't necessarily want to put themselves out there, and they feel almost embarrassed by that
Yeah.
at times with their English. But even though it was really, really good, like if I tried to speak a foreign language as well as they were speaking English, I wouldn't have a
Yeah.
chance. So I think almost sometimes having that connection that I had that Indian heritage potentially made some of those connections, those relationships a little bit easier to make. And then after a week, we were all flying anyway because, and
Yeah.
credit to our team, they're trying to build that culture and team environment where there was integration with the foreigners to the Indian players. We made sure that we really
Yeah.
focused on that, which made the whole experience so enjoyable.
Yeah. And equally, I touched on it at the start with the question about moving clubs, and that, how does a keeper have to adjust to a team with again with that sort of franchise style hockey, we'll call it. As a keeper, again, are you just sticking to your guns of, right, this is my style of goalkeeping, I'm going to make it fit to this mold, or was there more conversations that happened from that?
This was really hard, and it's a great question. So probably even in the club system here, you have like a longer preseason to really work out what you're going to do. Whereas
Yeah.
from the franchise stuff, I think we arrived 6-7 days before the first game.
Right. Okay.
So we don't know. So trying to teach everyone to be on the same page tactically made meant it was very difficult, and there were going to be mistakes because we'd only been together for
Yeah.
7 days before the first game, and so like the games at the start of the league were probably nowhere near as good tactically
As
to the
further on.
end, and so there was probably an element of from my goalkeeping that we were also playing a zone, so
Okay.
I was naturally going to be more aggressive, but also meant that when things went wrong, the play was I didn't really have many defenders around me. It was me
Yeah.
versus 3 or 4 forwards, so I had to be more aggressive than potentially I would be when I'm playing internationally. So, look, and probably that suited me from a goalkeeper style point of view because I like to be aggressive front foot, those kind of things. So,
Yeah.
there was definitely more of a thought around that. Is that actually to solve some of the problems, given the press we were playing and also the wider context that we were only together as 7 days before the first
Yeah.
game, there were going to be
Yeah.
mistakes. And probably I then had to be in a position where I could try and help solve those.
Yeah. Again, it's interesting as most people just go, right, we're just going to be told the structure and this is it. But as a keeper, there's quite a lot, from even penalty corner defense, tactics on that, the tactics of the team in general. There's a lot more pressure. Maybe pressure is maybe not the right word, but because again, like you've said throughout, you're an individual within the team, and does that cause a bit more frustration maybe when things aren't going right, because I'm also trying to learn this, this, and this. You guys just have to put the ball in the net.
No, I think that's just the nature of the job, right?
Yeah.
And I think it definitely taught me how can I really communicate this in a really succinct, concise way. So
Yeah.
with when people like English as their second language, when you're trying to go through a penalty corner defense meeting and you're going, right, I need you to be in this position doing this, this, and this. and then you've got a translator trying to say what you're saying to make sure that
Yeah.
some of the Indians that don't have great English, like that was it was a massive learning point for me actually, because in English, when everyone speaks English, it's very easy to kind of not waffle, but you can go into different detail and
Hmm.
probably you can lose people along the way. Whereas I really had to plan what I was saying in those meetings, and even like using video more effectively, more cleverly to help them understand. And even to an extent, so some of the defenders, so one of them didn't really have great English at all. So then I learned left, right, forwards, back, and basic commands in their language that they responded
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, fine, like that's fine. That's an easy thing that I can do, which makes their job easier in the game.
Yeah.
Great. Like I can't say I was fluent by the end of it, but I knew the basic hockey words, and actually
Yeah.
that helped them in that moment where, especially for them, that's a really high pressure moment for them.
Mhm.
Hockey India League coming back,
Yeah.
they're not they don't potentially they don't have the capacity in that moment to be going right, left. What does that actually mean? I need to do it
Yes.
this
What does
way.
that
Actually,
mean?
if I tell them something that is instinctive, if I go like that, then they'll just do it, and
Yeah.
which for me I
Brilliant.
think was again really thinking about delving into the detail of how can I communicate. Even something I brought back is how can I communicate most effectively to certain people.
Yeah.
Some people are able to take in lots of information, other people aren't. How do I adjust depending on who I'm talking to?
Who to talk to? Yeah. Again, another very interesting point. And does that mean within the game, do you have certain areas? So, like, do you prefer open play, penalty corner defense, shootouts? Like, is there a preferred thing that you like to do if in a match you had to do all three?
Ooh, great question. I think I would say, because I love kind of the aggressive style of goalkeeping, I think open play, kind of counter attack, broken play situations really play to that strength.
Hmm.
An ability to scramble around the goal and probably also shoot. I mean, yeah, I'm copping out because I'm picking two,
Yeah,
but I also
that's fine.
love the shootouts as well in terms of it really gives you the opportunity to show how mobile, agile, flexible, how physically dominant you can be in that space.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's like I love bits about penalty corners, but I think that's the bit that's probably not the least exciting, but it doesn't you can't show how good a goalkeeper can be. Whereas like PCD is so tactical now of like your
Yeah.
runners run a really good line, the goalkeeper stands in a certain zone of the goal. Like it's very scientific almost.
Yes.
You're trying to find the best way to keep the ball out the goal. Whereas I think the other stuff, the open play, the broken play, the shootouts, that's an art that you can really play around with and that's the beauty that's constantly developing. Whereas probably the PCD
I,
is more methodical and scientific.
yeah. And probably to be honest, the penalty corner attack and penalty corner defense at this point in time have probably now cancelled each other out. It's now, I think, at a point where penalty corner defense is brilliant. Penalty corner attack can't get much more
Yeah,
because unless you're rotating at incredible speeds, you're not getting any more out of a drag flick or a
yeah,
slight variation that no one's not seen before. So interesting about the shootout and then the open play, because I think the shootout especially has shown, especially at the Olympics where there's a wider audience, it's shown that goalkeepers aren't just these big foam things that stand in the net,
yeah,
and if the
yeah,
ball
yeah.
doesn't get hit right at them, then they're not saving it. It actually shows that you're probably more agile than most outfield players, and you've got a kit on.
Yeah, look, I think that's. I think some outfielders would disagree that we're as agile as them in kit,
It
but that's
it
fine.
hurt me to say it.
I'm happy to agree with that statement. I think, look, yeah, it's definitely great that we can show how quick we can be, and everyone's going, how are they doing that in the kit? And
Hmm.
that's a really exciting space and can encourage people to play in goal because they see those things. Whereas if they just see the gameplay, especially when it's young and actually they end up touching the ball 4 times in a game, like there's no
Hmm.
real excitement about that. Whereas when they see a shootout and the goalie making that final save to win, then there's that love and that passion for being a goalie.
Yeah, Yeah, no, I agree. And James, look, thank you very much. What people will not realize is this is our, I think, third attempt at this through technical difficulties. So
All my
I'll
end,
make
to be fair. Like, I'm going to hold my hand up, going, it was my end
okay.
problem. So that's
I was going to
fine.
throw you completely under the bus, but thank you for raising your hand and saying it. So that's good. Um, I have a few final questions that I've asked most people. I've tweaked it slightly since you're the goalkeeper. What first one being, what is a goalkeeping trend at the minute that you're really enjoying or really liking seeing?
Oh, that's a really good one. I think in probably the shootout trend of how goalkeepers are having to adjust to kind of the rule changes of umpires now allowing a lot more contact from the
Mhm.
goalkeeper when the player turns their back. So I think how goalies are interpreting that and the challenge that um, kind of presents and
Yeah,
what the different strategies to try and overcome that are. I think that's a really interesting space. And I think probably what will end up happening is a rule will change in about a year's time and everyone will go, right, well, this can't happen anymore. And there'll be
yeah,
so I think that's the beauty of goalkeeping as well. And probably that shootout space is it just keeps changing. And in a
yeah.
year's time, it's going to look very different to what goalies can do. And I think it's a great challenge because we're constantly adapting to what the forwards are trying to do because the forwards have realised that some strategy works and we're trying to find a solution. Once we find a solution, then it's on to the next bit.
Mhm.
Then the rules might change. And so I think that for me, the shootout trends are really exciting space to be
Yeah.
involved in and keep watching.
And then equally on the flip side of that, is there a trend that you don't like? Is it, for example, I having conversations with Simon Mason before. He said it really annoys him that there was one time he played without elbow guards, and now everyone doesn't wear elbow guards when actually they should be. You know, is there
Yeah,
something like that that you find frustrating or don't like as much?
I think probably, and it's a bit of a nerdy point, but now there's this the deep zone from a tactical point of view. Teams
Yeah.
are using a lot more, and I think it's obviously clearly very effective because Germany play a really good deep zone. They won the
Mm.
Europeans. Gantois played a really effective deep zone, go on to win the EHL. I think it's a hard space to play against because
Yeah.
obviously it's a very congested circle, and then it begs the question of one of the change ups attacking teams use is then just smashing the ball in, and
Yeah.
is that like safe for the people playing the deep zone? Yes, it's clearly it can be an effective strategy if you know how to do it
How to
well
do it?
and then you can but actually is that going to when younger teams are playing it or whatever and the skill from the attacking team isn't as good, so then when they try and hit the ball into the circle it's coming head height, there's more
Yes.
risk there. I think almost we want to see fast flowing, or maybe that's just me. I love the fact that hockey is a really fast flowing sport. And
Mm.
one thing I don't like about football at times, unless you're watching some really exciting teams, is it can be quite slow.
Yeah.
And I think with the deep zone, it has the potential that hockey could then become very much like it becomes quite a
Methodical.
slow build up play. It's almost like
Yeah.
basketball. Like once the shots happened, then they walk up to the deep zone and then they
Yeah.
work themselves out and then have a shot and then everyone does the
Yeah.
same. Like, don't want hockey to go that way. I want it to be fast, exciting, and that's potentially where that trend could take us.
Yes. No,
Um,
I agree on that one. Yeah. Um, Next question. It's a big one. I'll be interested to see your thoughts on it. Has there been a rule change in the past couple of seasons in hockey that you've either loved or hated?
well, I mean, I'm probably with that question, the aerial is always going to come up.
Yep. Every
Because
single person.
it's impossible to not talk about that. I think.
Yeah.
Look, I think obviously the first time it's brought in, kind of the way it's developed is obviously initially you couldn't have your stick above your head, so aerials became very, I don't know, more of a controlled environment. Right
Yeah.
now, stick above the head created more excitement and more ability for forwards to change how they're playing, but then it's also added more nuance to the rule of when do people take the ball, you can intercept, you can do all of this. I think it then becomes hard. I think some of the stages now of trying to really clarify, obviously, 5 meters where they can intercept outside body space, or sorry, playing distance, outside playing
Mhm.
distance. Um, there's some clarity coming, but obviously
It's difficult.
it's always subjective. That's the
Yeah.
problem. And so even when you look at the Europeans, there'll be one day of the tournament, and I think somebody raised it on a commentary. It's actually one day it was they were giving corners for the same foul, and then the next day they were letting it play on. And you're going, actually, if there's
Yeah.
no consistency at the top of the game, then going down the leagues, and it's obviously going to be really hard for umpires that aren't doing it
Yeah.
regularly, but also from a safety point of view, like I've I sometimes help out at the local club here, and then you're playing full team, and people are aerialing it into the D, and then trying to smash it on the volley,
Yeah.
and because of they see the international rule, it's then like, oh, actually this can happen, this can't, and you're going, actually lower down, it's potentially
Yeah.
making this sport more dangerous. Which obviously that's not the job of it is the job of the FIH to consider that, but that maybe there needs to be a separate rule for international hockey and top Premier, like top leagues.
Yeah. Top
Yeah,
tier and things like
and
that. Yeah.
because ultimately we don't want our sport to become more dangerous than it already is, and I think at times
Mhm.
it does step that way. Um,
Yeah. No.
that's
That.
probably
Yeah.
the
I
best
think
one. That's probably the
it.
best one.
It. It's the most glaring one, and I think that's why everyone said it as well, because it's just every yes, you can kick, if you kick the ball to free, but this one's just so nuanced and changes quite frequently.
Yeah,
Um,
and that, but
is
then on the flip side of that, there's been some rule changes that have been really good. Like
yeah,
I think the long corner moving to obviously in line where it comes off
is the
is
best.
is added more. It's not a disadvantage. It's very easy when it was back in the corner. You could just press it in the corner and they don't gain anything.
Yeah,
The self pass rule, obviously, that was a longer time ago. Um, but so I think it's great that hockey is also willing to make these changes. I think some
yeah,
of them are not going to work, and we have to appreciate that rather
yeah,
than just shoot people down for trying these things, because some of it could work really well.
yeah,
And I suppose like the other one with teams with a penalty corner threat are not going to be happy with is 2 goals for a field goal that's obviously been trialed at various points.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Um, so it's like to try these things and keep developing and growing the game. There's going to be things that you try that are wrong, things that you try that are
yeah,
going to be great, and I think we have to also accept that as a wider
yeah.
kind of context piece.
I, th- I think regardless of how you see them or how you see how they rule or go on, hockey has always been brilliant at adopting new things. We tried the fives. We've brought in the video referrals when they did, and we've tweaked it to make it as efficient as possible. Yes, it's not always right, but it's as efficient as possible. We're not standing for 15 minutes not knowing what's happening, like in the football and all
Yeah,
of this.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we the how we've conducted other things. Yes, the aerial rule is the glaring one of a disadvantage, but I think we as a sport have done very, very well. Even like female umpires umpiring top
yeah,
level men's sport long before other sports did it, and I think it's something to be celebrated. Like you said, I think we've done well in certain things. Other things we have dropped the ball as well. Um,
definitely, definitely. But I think it's also nice to see that like learning is happening. So
mhm.
even like the video referrals is an obvious one now, is that actually it's obviously very stressful for that person in the box when it goes up to them. And so now in the past, it's been that the on-field umpires have to just accept the decision that comes down, even when they can see that actually it's probably wrong. Whereas
Mhm.
like now that the fact that they have the ability to overrule and go, actually, this is what I'm
Yeah,
seeing. This is what, don't have to take the videos decision. I think it's good. I think you could even potentially improve it more that actually it's a collaborative decision in that moment
yeah,
then where they're constantly talking to each other going, and helping each other out from what they see on the pitch to obviously they see the multi angles in there. And I think
Yes.
there's more that could be done, but there's learning going on, which is great.
Mhm.
Like we make mistakes as players, officials, rule makers, everyone, they're allowed to make mistakes as long as learning
Exactly.
can happen.
Exactly. Is there a rule change that you would like to bring in that could only benefit you, it could benefit only a team you play on, or it could benefit hockey in general? We've had suggestions like bring back extra time, but only for 5 minutes at the end, or final play like in rugby where the whistle's gone and if the ball stays in play, you can just keep going if a team has momentum. Anything like that you can think of?
It's a very niche one for a
It
goalie,
is. It
this
is.
one, but I would say sometimes when they're running along the baseline and then they just
Mm-hmm.
flick it up at you and it's on target, but it's like a really rubbish shot. And then like they just run into you and it's kind of hit you and drops onto them and they win a corner because it's dangerous off you.
Yes.
I think that just shouldn't be a thing. Just like that's a play on. If the forwards flicked it from 3 yards away, just hit you.
And
Obviously,
ran into it.
Exactly. Realistically, it can't change. I understand that, but I think it's a rubbish rule that
Yeah.
forwards can take advantage of and go, right, I'm on the baseline 5 yards out. I'm just going to flick it at the goalie and then run into the ball after they've
Yeah.
tried to save it because they can't do anything. It's impossible to put it straight on the floor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd go with
Yeah.
that one.
Every goalie's agreed and every forward's hated that suggestion.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. And final question, the question I have asked everyone, and a question this has gone so well, I really cannot see how you do it the wrong way. But before match or a training, how do you put your socks and shoes on? Do you go sock, shoe, or sock, shoe?
God, you're making me think now because surely it's obvious. Surely it's
There is
socks,
an obvious.
shoe. Surely
It
it's
is.
you do your
Yeah.
socks first and then your shoes. No,
Thank you very much. Thank God this is now safe. All the 3 attempts at doing this are not in vain. It can go out. You put both socks on before your shoes. That is the only acceptable answer.
who has said sock shoe? I think we need to.
Um, you can have a word with Tim Nurse. That's all I'll say.
Really, Tim
Yeah,
Nurse.
yeah.
Wow.
He did. He backtracked really hard once I started going at him. Of it sometimes changes. It depends what socks I'm putting on. Or I was like,
Oh, that's brilliant. That's
yeah. So
fantastic.
you can now sit in the change room and watch as he potentially does it the wrong way. You'll never
I've never
notice it
even.
before, but now you
Yeah.
will notice it every
I've
time.
never even thought about it. I'm going to have to be a little bit more keyed into that now.
Yeah,
Never thought of that.
you'll spot it. It'll be the person you most unlikely suspect. They'll just go because it was my girlfriend that told me to ask this question. Everybody else, I've asked it last season of the guests and this season, and it's been really interesting on how people react. Of going, who does that? But then you've got the one person that goes,
It
"Oh
does,
crap, that's
yeah.
me."
It's interesting because, like, from a goalie side, some like have routines of the order they'll put their kit on, whereas I've never really like thought about it. But some people go like left kicker, left leg guard, right kicker, right leg guard. I'm like, God, I can't remember. I just pull whatever comes out first. Like, I'll
Yeah,
put the kicker on that I pull out first, then I'll put the other. To be fair, I'll go kickers, then leg guards, rather
that's
than
this that applies in the same
same.
way. I would
Yeah,
assume because you're putting your shoes on before everything else.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or your socks on before everything else. No, thank
Wow.
goodness. That's yeah.
I'm gonna have
That's
to.
just
I'm
all.
gonna. I'm. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna have to keep
Exactly.
an eye out now.
Yeah, and you can call them out in front of everyone. That's the way to do it. It's the only way they're going to stop.
Oh,
But James, look, thank you very, very much for doing this with us. And if there's anything that you want to plug, push people towards, anything like that, you can do all that now.
oh, no, no problem at all. I've really enjoyed being on. So yeah, no, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Oh no, it's no problem. Like I said, thank you very much again, and thank you very much for everyone watching and listening. The full video is on YouTube. And if you don't want to look at my face for an hour and 15 minutes or so, which is completely understandable, you can listen to us on Spotify and on all the other things that you can listen to us on. But thank you very much. And James, thank you very much again.
No, thank you.